All right, so we're diving into something that I think we all think about like all the time, right? That whole balanced life thing. It's kind of,
Elusive.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Elusive. Like, how do we get from feeling like we're juggling chainsaws to like, Zen garden vibes?
Right,
And
right.
and you sent over these 5 tips for creating a balanced life, and I'm so ready to unpack these.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this sort of framework
Right.
is these 5 tips is that it's not just a checklist. They're all interconnected. They
Ooh,
all work together, kind of like gears in a well-oiled machine.
I love that.
And you are the one who designs the machine.
Yes, I love that analogy. So tip number 1 is, okay, prioritizing well-being. This feels like a no-brainer, but it's so easy to let self-care get like shoved to the bottom of the priority list when things get crazy, which let's be honest is like always.
Always, 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 always. And I think the thing about self-care is we think about it as like this big thing that we
Yeah.
have to do, like, once a month, go to the spa or something.
Yes. Bubble bath, the whole thing.
Exactly. But the thing that's really important to remember is the word daily.
Okay.
Daily, daily, daily. Just like you would think about compound interest, right? Like small investments over time.
Right.
Small, consistent investments over time add up to huge gains in your finances. Well, small daily acts of self-care add up to significant gains in your well-being.
Okay, so that's such a good way to look at it, right? Because like what's the one small thing that you listening right now could do today as a deposit in your well-being?
It could be anything. It could be a 5-minute meditation. It could be a quick walk around the block. It could be just like really savoring your cup of coffee in the morning,
Yes.
not rushing through it, just like those little pockets of peace.
Oh, I love that visual, the well-being bank. It makes it feel like an investment, not an indulgence, right? And speaking of investments, tip number 2 is setting boundaries, which, oh boy, this one can be tough.
Tough one, tough one. And this requires practice. But think about it this way. Boundaries are not selfish.
Yo.
Boundaries are an act of self-preservation
Hmm.
to prevent burnout,
Hmm.
to protect your mental health so you can actually show up in the other areas of your life.
Yes, because if you're burnt out, you're not any good to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? It's so true. But what are like do you have tips for actually setting those boundaries? Because I feel like we hear work-life balance all the time and it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
What? How do we actually do it?
Well, one thing that I find really helpful is just like visual cues.
Okay.
So for example, like have a screensaver on your computer that like pops up at 6:00 p.m. That's just like a nice little reminder like, "Hey, close your laptop."
Oh, that's so good.
Or like a sticky note on your desk that says like, "Time for me." Just something to like snap you out of it.
Yes, I love those ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, tip number 3. We are cruising through these, making time for relationships. This is huge, right?
It's huge.
And I think so often we can deprioritize those things when we're busy, but they are, I think, the bedrock of a really, truly balanced life. And again, just like we were talking about with self-care, I think it's those small, consistent actions.
Yeah.
It's not about the grand gestures.
Right.
It's about those little moments of connection with the people that matter most that will really nourish your soul.
So true. So instead of waiting for a birthday or an anniversary or whatever, what's one small way that you can connect with someone you care about today? Could be a text, could be a phone call, could be just sending a funny meme. It all counts.
It all counts. Sharing a meal,
Yes.
calling a friend on your commute.
Yes. It really does make a difference. Okay. This next one always throws me for a loop a little bit. Staying flexible. How do you like balance structure and routine with being adaptable? Because that feels like very at odds sometimes.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because you can have both.
Yeah.
And I think it's the art of reframing. So think about it like this. Think about your life as a jazz composition.
Oh.
Okay. So there's a structure, there's a rhythm, but there's also room for improvisation.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what flexibility is. It's not about abandoning your plans altogether. It's about approaching life's inevitable curveballs with an open mind and a willingness to adapt,
Yeah.
while still keeping the melody of your life flowing.
Ooh, I love that. Because life is like jazz. There are always these unexpected notes, and sometimes you just gotta like
Go with the flow.
go with the flow. Exactly. Exactly.
And the more you practice that, the more you'll be able to handle those unexpected rifts, right?
Mhm.
Each time you navigate a challenge with flexibility, you gain this experience and resilience that helps you face the next one.
That is so true. And finally, my personal favorite, because this is the fun one. Pursuing hobbies. And
Yeah.
this is not about like adding another item to your to-do list. This is about like carving out time for things that bring you pure joy.
Yes. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that hobbies aren't just like leisure.
Right.
Hobbies are incredible stress relievers. They're outlets for creativity. They can even be opportunities to learn new skills, and just like expand yourself as a person.
It's so true. I feel like for me, that's when like my creativity really flourishes, is when I actually make time for those things that, light me up. It's like a breath of fresh air for my brain. What about for you listening? Is there a hobby that you've kind of pushed aside or something you've always been curious about, but you just haven't made time for? This is like your official invitation to rediscover that passion or explore something new.
Totally. What did you love doing as a kid? What have you always been fascinated by but never really pursued? Now's the time.
Yes. Okay, so as we kind of like wrap up our deep dive on these 5 tips, I'm really struck by, as we're talking about them, how interconnected they are, right? Because like if you're taking care of your well-being, you actually have the energy to nurture those relationships and show up for people. If you're setting those boundaries, it gives you space to actually pursue those hobbies, right? It's like they all work together to create this like beautiful like symphony of a life. I don't know.
It's so true. And that's what's so great about this idea of balance. It's not about this like perfect static state.
Right.
It's about constantly adjusting those different elements, those different gears in the machine
Right.
to create a life that feels really fulfilling and authentic to you.
Yeah. So as you go about your day today, like I have a little challenge for you listening. What is the tip that resonated with you the most from today? And maybe more importantly, what is one small step? And it can be tiny, but what's one small step that you can take today to put it into action?
Exactly, because even the smallest step can create a ripple effect that leads to huge changes over time. This deep dive, it's just the beginning. This is
Oh.
your journey to a more balanced and fulfilling life. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep learning.